Hello everyone, this is Grace. It is July the 9th, 2019, and we are working our way through the sixth seal of Revelation. We left off on verse 15, chapter 6, verse 15, and we will get right to it. And the kings of the earth and the great men and the rich men and the chief captains and the mighty men and every bondman and every free man hid themselves in the dens and in the rocks of the mountains. Now, we have previously discovered that these signs here that were given are all symbolic. So when we come down here and we see similar wording, we know that this must be symbolic as well. Now, the reason why it's worded like this, why they name all of these people off, is because they want to show that everyone is on an even playing field. Everyone's on an even till here. The kings of the earth, the great men, the rich men, the chief captains, the mighty men, the slaves, and the free men are all at the same level. And they all did the same thing. They hid themselves in the dens and in the rocks of the mountains. Now, this verse here is very similar to a verse in Hosea. So we're going to take a look at that. Let's go up and see what's going on first. Hosea, I didn't mean to do that. Let's see. Yeah, I don't want to lose the scripture. Okay, so Hosea 10:1. Israel is an empty vine. He bringeth forth fruit unto himself. According to the multitude of his fruit, he has increased the altars. According to the goodness of his land, they have made goodly images. So what he's saying here is that Israel is an empty vine because according to the more that they are blessed, the more they build idols. The more that Yahweh blesses them, the more they use those blessings to worship idols. According to the multitudes of his fruit, he has increased the altars. According to the goodness of his land, they have made goodly images. So he's blessing his people. And the more he blesses them, they're not turning to him. They're turning to idols and saying and praising them. Okay. The high places also of Avon, the sin of Israel shall be destroyed. The thorn and the thistle shall come up on their altars, and they shall say to the mountains, cover us, and to the hills, fall on us. Okay. So when it goes down, we see what happens. Okay. So but it says they hid themselves in the dens and in the rocks of the mountains. So we're going to look up dens. A cavern, a hiding place or resort, a cave or a den. And in the rocks, so they hid themselves in the dens and in the rocks of the mountains. We know what a rock is. You know what that is because we say Yahweh is our rock, but we'll look it up anyway. Oh, I have a scripture that I like that has rock in it. Here we go. For their rock is not as our rock, even our enemies themselves being judges. Their God is not as our God, they themselves being judges. They see the difference between us and them. They see the difference. So, and we don't have to tell them. They know. And he shall say, where are their gods, their rock in whom they trusted? So the rock is who you're building the temple to. Or, yeah. Who the religion is to. Who the religion is for. And so they hid themselves in the dens and in the rocks of their mountains. Oh, we should look up a prophetic. I didn't do this before. But look up the prophetic meaning of dens. I was just thinking of it as a hiding place. Oh, it is. They couch in their dens and abide in covert and lie in wait. Oh, well, okay. So it can be a hiding place or a couching place to lie in covert. Well, that's what it said in the definition, though, I guess so. Okay. We'll just go with what we have. Okay. So, and they said unto the mountains and the rocks, they said unto their God and to their religious doctrine, fall on us and hide us from the face of him that, well, not religious doctrine. This is the mountains, I guess, would be their priests, the pastors, the church leaders, anyone who can help them to satiate the fear that's coming about them. And said unto the mountains and rocks, fall on us and hide us from the face of him that sitteth on the throne and from the wrath of the Lamb. The Lamb being the trumpets, and the wrath of God being the vials. Okay? For the great day of his wrath is come, and who shall be able to stand? Yay! We made it through. Okay, now we get to go to the types and the illustrations. We're going to go to Ezekiel. I intentionally didn't give a summary there, everyone, because we're going to be working back from Ezekiel. So we're going to start. We should all have the understanding that the sealing that is done in Ezekiel 9 is the same as the sealing that is done in Revelation 7. Okay? So knowing that the events that happened before Revelation 7 are the same events that are going to be happening before Ezekiel 9, we can work backwards. So that's what we're going to do. So we're going to look at Ezekiel 8 and find out exactly what's going on up under that seal. that mystery. Okay. And it came to pass in the 6th year, in the 6th month, on the 5th day of the month, as I sat in mine house, and the elders of Judah sat before me, that the hand of the Lord God fell there upon me. Then I beheld, and lo, a likeness as the appearance of fire, from the appearance of his loin even downward fire, and from his loins even upward as the appearance of brightness, as the color of amber. And he put forth the form of a hand, and took me by a lock of mine head, and the Spirit lifted me up between the earth and the heaven, and brought me in the visions of God to Jerusalem, to the door of the inner gate that looked toward the north, where was the seat of the image of jealousy, which provoketh to jealousy. And behold, the glory of the God of Israel was there, according to the vision that I saw in the plain. And said he unto me, Son of man, lift up thine eyes now the way toward the north. So I lifted up mine eyes the way toward the north, and behold, northward at the gate of the altar, this image of jealousy in the entry. So they've got an idol at the entry gate of the, oh my God, okay, that's all right, because it's going to get worse. And he said furthermore unto me, Son of man, see, this is outside, at least this is outside the sanctuary, I will say that. And he said furthermore unto me, Son of man, seest thou what they do, even the great abominations that the house of Israel committeth here, that I should go far off from my sanctuary? But turn thee yet again, and thou shalt see greater abominations. And he brought me to the door of the court. And when I looked, behold, a hole in the wall. Then said he unto me, Son of man, dig now in the wall. And when I had digged in the wall, behold, a door. And he said unto me, Go in and behold the wicked abominations they do there. So they're doing this in secret. They're hiding this. And this is in the sanctuary. So I went in and saw, and behold, every form of creeping thing and abominable beast, and all the idols of the house of Israel portrayed upon the wall round. And all the idols of the house of Israel portrayed upon the wall round about. And there stood before them 70 men of the ancients of the house of Israel. And in the midst of them stood Jazaniah the son of Shaphan, with every man a censer in his hand, and a thick cloud of incense went up. So these are leaders in the sanctuary. I think it's the Sanhedrin. That's 70. Moses picked 70 men to be leaders in the church, or when to be leaders. I don't think there was a church at that time, but these are the leaders in the sanctuary. And this guy right here is supposed to be chief amongst them. I read about him that he was possibly, Shaphan was possibly a teacher of one of the good kings. There weren't a lot of good kings in Israel, but this is one of the ones that kept the laws of God, Josiah. And he was actually a teacher to him. And yet still his son, who is a leader in the church, is in there worshiping idols. Then he said unto me, Son of man, hast thou seen what the ancients of the house of Israel do in the dark, every man in his chambers, every man in the chambers of his imagery? For they say, the Lord seeth us not, the Lord has forsaken the earth. Okay. He said unto me, Turn thee yet again, and thou shalt see greater abominations that they do. Then he brought me to the door of the gate of the Lord's house, which was toward the north, and behold, there sat women weeping for Tammuz. Easter. I just think that Easter is just one of the vilest. I was reading about Easter, and I tell you what, I didn't even read the whole thing. I was reading, they get pregnant 9 months before, they had a baby, they kill the baby, they dip the eggs and blood and the blood of the babies and stuff like that. And you know what? I had enough. I don't even know what it was about. I just got halfway through it and was like, I don't need to know no more. If that's what this is about, I'm out. So I just think that's one of the most vilest things. That's personal. I mean, I'm not judging, because Yahweh says there's worse. There's worse in Yahweh's eyes. I probably would have put this at the top of the worst, but that's not the case. And this is the women. The women's supposed to be the Holy Spirit, the spirit of the church. Oh my, okay. Then he brought me to the door of the gate of the Lord's house, which was toward the north, and behold, there sat women weeping for Tammuz. Then said he unto me, Hast thou seen this, O son of man? Turn thee yet again, and thou shalt see greater abominations than these. And he brought me into the inner court of the Lord's house, and behold, at the door of the temple of the Lord, between the porch and the altar, were about 25 men, with their backs toward the temple of the Lord, and their faces toward the east, and they worshiped the sun toward the east. Sunday worship. Okay. And the 25, I'm not sure why it says about it. I think it's maybe some of them are, no. There's supposed to be like 24 men servicing the temple, and then the high priest. So that would be 25, but I'm not sure why the about is there. And their faces toward the east, and they worship the sun toward the east. I think that's just to imply that it's the leaders of the church, to let us know that these are leaders as well. Okay. Then he said unto me, Hast thou seen this, O son of man? This verse right here gets me. Is it a like thing to the house of Judah, that they commit the abominations which they commit here? Do they know what they're doing? Do they even, what is this? What is this? For they have filled the land with violence, and have returned to provoke me to anger. And they fill the land with violence, and then they come here to provoke me to anger, and lo, they put the branch to their nose. They snub their nose. Therefore will I also deal in fury. Mine eye shall not spare, neither will I have pity. And though they cry in mine ears with a loud voice, yet I will not hear them. So no pity, that's the wrath. So we're still working backwards. So this is what's happening. We see what's happening that leads up to the sealing. This is it. He's had enough. They're doing Sunday worship now in his temple. Now he looked on. When they put the idols all outside of the sanctuary, he looked on. He looked on when they started making holidays. Oh, they were praying to other gods, and they put idols in the temple. Now they done brought their idols in his sanctuary and hiding them and worshiping in the dark. Said, "Oh, he don't care. He don't see. He don't know." He ignored it. When they started building all these fancy holidays and ceremonies and weeping and for Tammuz and the false gods, he let it go. But the greatest abomination is they out there worshiping the sun on Sunday worship, and no doubt they're in his temple doing it. They've got the people in the temple doing it too. No, I mean, and he said, "No, that's it. We had enough. That's it. We're done." So then commenced the sealing. So let's go backwards. We're going to go back to, because we want to look at sanctuary. If we go to 7, it says, this is unto the land of Israel. So this is to everybody that's there. We want to look at the people of the sanctuary. We want to look at the people of the faith, not so much the countries that have been the countries of faith. But we might read through that. I don't know. And the word of the Lord, let's read through it, because I don't really know if there's something pertinent in there. And the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of man, set thy face toward the mountains of Israel. No, we're at 16 minutes. We're just going to read through this. Oh, man. Do we have to? Let me see if I'm going to put you on pause. We might not have to read through this, because we need to go to Daniel in order to see what's going on there too. Matter of fact, let's just not do this. Let's just go to Daniel. Because in Daniel, let me get there. It's hard for me to talk. And in Daniel, we have an illustration of the trumpets. Okay, so that's Nebuchadnezzar the king and his 7 years of, his 7 years of being displaced. So let's take a look at that. We want to try and wrap this up. So Nebuchadnezzar the king unto all the people, nations, languages that dwell in the earth. So this is what's happening before the 7 trumpets, okay? Nebuchadnezzar the king unto all people, nations, and languages that dwell in all the earth. Peace be multiplied unto you. I thought it good to show the signs and wonders that God has wrought toward me. So he did get signs. How great are his signs, and how mighty are his wonders. His kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and his dominion is from generation to generation. So let's look at the sign that he got. I, Nebuchadnezzar, was at rest in mine house, and flourishing in my palace. I saw a dream which made me afraid, and the thoughts upon my bed, and the visions of my head troubled me. Therefore made I decree to bring in all the wise men of Babylon before me, that they might make known unto me the interpretation of the dream. Then came in the magicians, the astrologers, the Chaldeans, and the soothsayers, and I told the dream before them, but they did not make known unto me the interpretation thereof. They didn't know. But at last Daniel came in before me, whose name was Belshazzar, according to the name of my God, and in whom is the spirit of the holy gods. And before him I told the dream, saying, O Belshazzar, master of the magicians, because I know that the spirit of the holy gods is in me, and no secret troubleth thee, tell me the visions of my dream that I have seen, and the interpretation thereof. He knows who has the truth. He knows. And he told him, you can tell me this. Thus were the visions of mine head in my bed. I saw and behold a tree in the midst of the earth, and the height thereof was great. The tree grew and was strong, and the height thereof reached unto heaven, and the sight thereof to the end of all the earth. And the leaves thereof were fair, and the fruit thereof much, and in it was meat for all. The beast of the field had shadow under it, and the fowls of the heaven dwelt in the burrows thereof, and all flesh was fed of it. I saw in the visions of my head upon my bed, and behold, a watcher, and the Holy One came down from heaven. Now, we probably are not going to go there because we're at 20 minutes, but it's in Ezekiel chapter 3 where he's called a watchman to warn the people. And he cried aloud and said, thus, hew down the tree and cut off his branches, shake off his leaves and scatter his fruit. Let the beast get away from under it and the fowls from his branches. Nevertheless, leave the stump of his roots in the earth, even with the band of iron and brass and the tender grass of the field, and let it be wet with the dew of heaven, and let his portion be with the beast in the grass of the earth. Let his heart be changed from man's, and let a beast's heart be given unto him, and let 7 times pass over him. This matter is decreed by the watchers, and the demand by the word of the holy ones, to the intent that the living may know that the Most High ruleth in the kingdom of men, and give it to whomever he will, and set up over it the basest of men. This dream I, King Nebuchadnezzar, have seen. Now thou, O Belshazzar, declare the interpretation thereof, for as much as all the wise men of the kingdom of my kingdom are not able to make known unto me the interpretation, but thou art able, for the spirit of the holy gods is in thee. Then Daniel, whose name was Belshazzar, was astonished for 1 hour. So he didn't say anything for an hour. And his thoughts troubled him, because he didn't want to give him the bad news. The king spake and said, Belshazzar, let not the dream or the interpretation thereof trouble thee. So he put him at ease. And then Belshazzar answered and said, my lord, the dream be to those that hate thee, and the interpretation thereof to thine enemies. The tree that thou sawest, which grew and was strong, whose height reached unto heaven, and the sight thereof all the earth, whose leaves were fair, and the fruit thereof much, and it was meat for all, under which the beasts of the fields dwelt, and upon whose branches the fowls of the heaven had their habitation. It is thou, O king, that art grown and become strong, for thy greatness is grown and reaches unto heaven, and thy dominion to the end of the earth. Now we saw that in Hosea, the similar verse that was happening, where they were crying to the rocks and the hills, they had been blessed. This was a blessed people. But the more they were blessed, the more they sinned, or the more idols they had. And whereas the king saw a watcher and a holy one coming down from heaven, and saying, hew the tree down and destroy it, yet leave the stump of the roots thereof in the earth, even with the band of iron and brass, in the tender grass of the field, and let it be wet with the dew of heaven, and let his portion be with the beasts of the field, till 7 times pass over him. This is the interpretation, O king, and this is the decree of the Most High, which is come upon my lord the king, that they shall drive thee from men, and thy dwelling shall be with the beasts of the field, and they shall make thee to eat grass as oxen, and they shall wet thee with the dew of heaven, and 7 times shall pass over thee, till thou know that the Most High ruleth in the kingdom of men, and give it to whomever he will. Excuse me 1 moment. And whereas they commanded to leave the stump of the roots, thy kingdom shall be sure unto thee, after that thou shalt have known that the heavens do rule. Is it the heavens ruling? Wherefore, O king, let my counsel be accepted. Hold on. Let my counsel be acceptable unto thee, and break off thy sins by righteousness, and thy iniquities by showing mercy to the poor, if it may be a lengthening of thy tranquility. So he can change all of this. He can change it, or at the very least, postpone it. All he has to do is break off his sins by righteousness, and show mercy to the poor, to the widow, to the fatherless. All this came upon King Nebuchadnezzar. At the end of 12 months, he walked in the palace of his kingdom of the kingdom of Babylon. The king spake and said, is not this great Babylon that I have built for the house of the kingdom by the might of my power and for the honor of my majesty? While the word was in the king's mouth, there fell a voice from heaven saying, O King Nebuchadnezzar, to thee it is spoken, the kingdom is departed from thee. I don't think we need to go any further. Well, yeah, we do. And they shall drive thee from men, and thy dwelling shall be with the beasts of the fields. They shall make thee to eat grass as oxen, and 7 times shall pass over thee, until thou knowest that the Most High ruleth in the kingdom of men, and giveth to whomever he will. So this is for the saved. His grandson Belshazzar, that's for the lost. They are weighed in the balances and found wanting during this time. His grandson, however, yeah, that's who's lost. The same hour was the thing fulfilled upon Nebuchadnezzar, and he was driven from men, and did eat grass as oxen, and his body was wet with the dew of heaven, till his hairs were grown like eagle's feather, and his nails like birds. So this is for those who are going to go through the tribulation and find the Father. So we're gonna stop there because we want to go through this quickly. We're at 25 minutes. So let's take a look real quick and compare what we've learned to what we've read. We know that Nebuchadnezzar was given a sign. He knew that this was coming. So we can, just as the wicked can see these signs, they see the shaking in the church. They see the word has been changed. The ordinances have been changed. All of these things are going to be made aware to them. If they don't know now, they'll know then. The stars from the heaven fell to the earth, even as a fig tree when she is, their leaders in the church are going to start falling, because those are the church leaders. And their prayers are not being answered. How is all of this happening, right? Well, remember, the first horse to run was the white horse. This is the false doctrine. They're going to start seeing these horses running. Stuff is going to be happening, not the wrath, because all of this is just the beginning of sorrows. This is not the wrath yet. It's not as bad. It's going to be pretty bad. But things are happening all over, and this is happening in the church. These horses are riding in the church. So they're seeing all of these things happen. And what they do? They go and have a revival. They're taking the blessings that they do have, and they're building a bigger temple and worshiping false gods even more. Do you see? This is the white horse that's getting bigger and bigger and bigger as these horses are running further and faster and stronger. How is that possible? That's what's going on there. Don't believe me? Let's look at Daniel 3. Oh, we're at 27 minutes. Let's review Daniel 3. But that's what's happening here real quick. The people have been blessed. And as soon as they see those blessings slipping, they know that it is the Lord that is blessing them. But they take the blessings and they worship idols. They build bigger altars to their false idols. They're worshiping Tammuz. They're crying, weeping for, well, I don't remember them all, but we just read it. Okay, they're doing all of these things. They're doing all of these things to try and please God, when none of it is for Yahweh. All of it is for their false gods. And the ultimate insult is going to be the Sunday worship. When they all decide, hey, look, stuff is happening in the church. These horses are running. There's famine, there's death, there's this, that, and the other. Let's all get together and worship on Sunday. That's my interpretation of that verse, that part where they said they're worshiping the sun. That's my specific interpretation of that. It just says they're worshiping toward the east. They're worshiping the sun toward the east. You can interpret however you want to. My version of it is they're all going to get together. There's going to be a big revival. And they're going to say, hey, let's all worship the sun. We see the signs. Everything's there. Our prayers aren't being answered. We've been cut off from heaven. Our preachers are fallen. Our doctrine has been changed. They see the signs. They're going to hide their heads in the dirt, and they're going to say, hey, look here. Dens, false gods, and mountains, preachers, come up with some doctrine to deceive us. whisper sweet nothings in our ear, and hide us from what we see is coming. We see it coming. They're just not going to change, just like Nebuchadnezzar didn't change. If we look at Daniel, I'm sorry, I'm going on and on and on. I'm just trying to make it understood because it's new to me as well, and so I'm not positive that I'm explaining it correctly. So if I'm overdoing it, I do apologize. So Nebuchadnezzar was the trumpets, and when we look at the trumpets in Revelation, we look at the trumpets, then we see what comes right before that. It's the sealing of the saints. So when we look at Daniel 3, we see the sealing of the saints. And what do? I have a study about this, but we'll go through it real quick. And hear this. We're at 30. I should have done 2. I should have done it part 4. I wish I had. We're going to scoot through this faster than 10 minutes because I can't do 40 minutes. I should have just broke it up in two. Nebuchadnezzar is making an image of gold because in Daniel 2, he has had a dream. In Daniel 2, he had a dream of an image, and he didn't know what the dream was. So Daniel came to him and gave him the dream. And he, of course, once it was read back, once he told him what it was, it started popping off in his head. He remembered what it was, right? So, but in the dream, he said that Babylon is only going to last so long. Then it's going to be replaced by another kingdom. Then that one's going to be replaced by another kingdom. And all of it was a statue of a man. Each item was a statue of a man. And Babylon was represented by the head of gold. Then there was the breast and the arms of silver, the belly and the thighs of brass, and the legs of iron, each representing a different kingdom, and so on and so forth. So he decides, hey, I want my kingdom to last forever. So I'm going to build this image, but all of gold, like his kingdom was represented by the head of gold. So he's gonna make it all of gold. And so this is the defiance here. So he gathers together the princes, the governors, the captains, the judges, the treasurers, the counselors, the sheriffs, all of the rulers of the province to come to the dedication of the image which he builds. And I'm at 32 minutes. I have a video about this, so I don't feel too bad about not going through it thoroughly. But he calls everyone to worship the image that he built. And Nebuchadnezzar and Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego say, no, we're not going to be doing that. We're not worshiping your God. And at first when he saw who it was, he knew who they were and he loved them. But then when they said, no, we're not worshiping your false image, then he got really mad, and he has his people commanded, wait a minute. Well, not. And he commanded his most mighty men that were in his army to bind Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and to cast them into the burning fiery furnace. Now, the fiery furnace is a furnace of affliction, and there's 2 outcomes. Either you're refined by that furnace, or you're burnt up. So the men that were bound, these men were bound in their coats, their hose, and their hats, and their other garments, and were cast into the midst of the burning fiery furnace. Therefore, because the king's commandment was urgent, and the furnace exceeding hot, the flame of the fire slew those men that took up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. So he destroyed his own men. But the point is that, what was the point of going? Because all of this happens under the 6th seal. All of this is going on. And even with the knowledge, I just want you to see that Nebuchadnezzar he's just defiant. He hides his head in the sand. He tries to undo the truth that he knows is going to come. He tries to undo it, but it doesn't work. It never works. He could have just been right. But he didn't want to do that. He didn't want to give up his idols. So anyway, that is my interpretation. I doubt I'll get any feedback, but I'd like some feedback on it since this is new for me. Uh, maybe somebody will have something to say. Sorry I rushed this. I do that, but I'm gonna get better with this. I am. Anyway, oh, it doesn't matter because if you have questions, just post them down at the bottom and I'll get back to you. So we'll close it out with that. I hope that was helpful to you. I hope that was fairly clear. Clear as mud, I know. Alrighty. You all take care until next time. Yahweh bless.